So figuring out the business model, aka the money. This was interesting. This was an interesting part of the process. So when I decided that I was going to make the book into a series, or at the time into a movie, I had a conversation with Kemi Adetiba, and she said to me, Arese, I don't think you should do a movie first. You should probably do a series, because I think a series would be a better format for the kind of content that you've produced in the book. Reason being, you'd be able to replicate the chapters in the book in episodes, and you'll be able to lay out all the money lessons in each episode, which I thought brilliant. It makes sense. Now the challenge was, how do TV series make money in Nigeria? Let me explain. Now for movies, it's clear. You make a good movie, you go to the box office, you can make some of your money there, and then if it's good enough, it can go to Netflix. In fact, at the time, there were only like 2 movies on Netflix from Nigeria. So you couldn't, it was a dream, maybe even a goal, but you couldn't realistically plan in terms of making that a real revenue stream, right? So with the TV series idea, I was in a tight corner. Everyone could tell me how much it would take to produce something like this, and they were calling big numbers: 50 million, 100 million, 60 million, whatever. But the thing is, no one could really tell me in any real way how it was going to generate revenue. Now, there were different formats that existed at the time. There were TV shows that existed on platforms like YouTube that were owned by banks, right? But they were essentially content marketing tools. They weren't designed to be profit making. Obviously, I was trying to make something that would make me money. Then there was the option of a TV station who actually had, the purchasing power, commissioning you, to go and make a show for them. But the challenge was they would own the content. I'd spent 3 years of my life writing this book, marketing it, going on a Pan-African book tour. I wasn't going to give away my intellectual property for a pittance. So I was like, yep, skip that idea. But then there was also the option of licensing it, or getting a TV station to license it. Again, there was a challenge for me in terms of the amount that people told me it will cost to produce this vis-a-vis how much you could actually get per episode from a TV station, right? And the exclusivity terms as well. So they would want to have it exclusively for, say, 18 months and pay you. So it was a comparison of, Arese, you should spend 50 million to produce the kind of thing that you want, but they will pay you something like 200K or 500K an episode. It just made no sense to me. So I knew those things were out. Eventually, I decided on a model where I was going to sell product placements and advertising slots to brands that were interested in the unique pairing of entertainment and financial literacy. So obviously, no-brainer, banks, all of that. But it was not a no-brainer. I saw this as the only way that, I could really make real money from this. But it was challenging and it was a big risk, right? Because again, many of the brands that I was talking to hadn't, done something like this before, and they weren't sure if it was going to work. They knew the book was popular. In fact, a lot of I had a meeting with a banking executive at one point, and she basically said, why are we going to give you all this money when you haven't produced anything on this level before? But I said to her, I had also never written a book before, but it is arguably the most popular financial literacy book for African millennial women across the continent. How you like me now? But you know something, the truth is, she was kind of right. I didn't have any proof of concept at the time. So having conversations with investors, having conversations with brands was tough. I needed to be able to tell investors how I would make a profit, and that seemed a bit unclear. And I needed to convince the brands that this was something that was going to be valuable, for them. So it was challenging, but we got there in the end. So at this point, I had choices to make. I could go the way of raising capital with investors and convincing them that there was an ROI here. By the time, the truth was, I wasn't sure where the ROI, was going to come from, because I wasn't sure how much the brands would actually agree, to pay for these product placements and advertising slots. So I was just shooting my shots. So I decided at some point that I didn't want to be having multiple conversations about money. So one with investors, trying to convince them that this was something that was viable when I wasn't sure of the ROI, and another with brands, trying to convince them that this was, that this pairing of entertainment and financial literacy was something that would do wonders, for their brand. Is a great association. The book did really well. It's popular amongst millennials. And basically, this would be a series that would come with a built-in audience, a ready-made audience that, wants access to your services, your products and services, because obviously they're interested in financial literacy. So a no-brainer, right? But it was hard. I eventually had to do a mix of both. It was mostly product placement and advertising slots that funded the series. But at some point, because brands don't pay you, all at once, they pay you in different chunks, and by the time you're dealing with all the administrative stuff, the cash flow is a bit wonky, right? So at different stages, I needed money. And I'll always be grateful to people like, I'll call them my angel investors, or people who gave me debt. So Olumide Shoyombo, Yomi Awobakum, Olutinumbu, my friends Toby Oshoba, Usman Abdulrazak, my associate producer and bestie, Maria Luciano Gabriel. These were just a few people, that were really there for me in terms of like cash flow. Osayi Alile, my mentors, Osayi Alile, Tara Fela-Durotoye, Bolali, Austin Peters, they were amazing. And just more than this, like, you realize, like, you need a support system when you're doing something like this. Like, at many points, like, I was just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe the generosity of my friends. There are people who would send me money to feed the crew one day, or send, food, or send different things. I was just super grateful. It was amazing. It took a village. But yes, funding is super important, but it's challenging in Africa because it's still, entertainment has always been here, Nollywood has always been here, but it's only just gotten to the point where people can see that there's a real, like, income stream here, like there are real growth, prospects here, which is why I get super excited when I see numbers like box office numbers. And then when I hear actors griping, like, how much do they pay? Like, and they're just announcing all these big numbers. I'm like, wow, I wish I could explain to people, the bigger picture. All those big numbers are not that big in terms of when you're talking to investors. They don't sound like big numbers to, like, real investors, right? But I'm excited every time the numbers go up, because it shows how big, the market can be, how big the customer base for entertainment, can be. And I just feel like Nollywood, we're on the cusp of something. And the more projects like this do well financially, the more it'll attract the right kind of capital, the more investors understand, the business model of what can work and what can't work. At many points, I had meetings with high net worth individuals who would say to me, oh, my team would look at this. And after having several meetings, I remember one guy saying, sorry, my team said that this TV series in Nigeria can never make money. This is not something that we're interested in. I was heartbroken, but I let it drive me, right? Even when I heard, the multiple no's and whatever, I just kept, going. But I'm hoping that in the next, few years, film financing is going to be a thing that is well structured and has, like, lucrative returns. So yeah, the money was challenging. Figuring out the business model was challenging. But I'm hoping that other people who want to produce content like this would learn from my experience and my mistakes.